Oh man, if 2024 has brought out anything in me, it has been the competitive spirit. And the thing that I've been thinking about the most since Spider-Man 2 has come out is which one is better overall speaking. Spider-Man 1 or Spider-Man 2. I'm going to be looking at a few aspects, maybe actually like 5 or 6 aspects. And if you're new, go ahead and subscribe. Comment down below, which one do you think is better out of these topics? I'm going to be hitting each and every single one. I want to know your guys' thoughts on each and every single one as well. So comment down below and like the video too. Let's start to get to 500 likes. That'd be incredibly appreciated. And thank you guys so much for watching. The web swinging, obviously, Spider-Man 2. I mean, like, Spider-Man 1 is good, but if you compare them side by side, like, I swear to God, it takes like 5 minutes to get across Manhattan. It takes like 2 minutes in Spider-Man 2, right? The speed, the way you move around, the corner tether, the loop-de-loop, the slingshot, every new feature that they brought into this game, the web wings, I mean, everything. It keeps going and going and going. And, of course, the freaking web assist, actual level adjustment that you can do, that's just also 10 times phenomenal than what they did in the last game. So I genuinely think that what they did for this game is going to be looked at from future development teams about how to really craft the perfect web swinging, like, you know, experience. And I genuinely think that the first game was a good platform, right? The first game, I can't really say Miles Morales because I'm only comparing it to this game, but that first game really had a good foundation. And the way they had that foundation for the web swinging really set up what they did for Spider-Man 2, which I like. So everything about Spider-Man 2 is way better than Spider-Man 1. The next one, I was actually debating this one, and it was a lot harder than most people thought, because this isn't such a black and white answer, you know, or even like anywhere near as easy as it might seem. The gameplay for Spider-Man 2 most definitely feels better, and there are things like, of course, the wall kick where you're slamming people against the wall and kicking their nuts feels amazing, right? I genuinely think that there are certain abilities, like, of course, the symbiote. It feels really, really good. I feel like they could have done a lot more with what they had, but the first game with the combat, I don't know. There's something about it that feels really good. I almost compare it to, like, Arkham City to Arkham Knight, where while Arkham Knight still had all those gadgets and whatnot, kept all those gadgets, felt faster, felt more, I guess, impactful. You felt like you were in your prime. And then when, of course, you had the symbiote, you felt like you were also more powerful, kind of like what you feel like in Arkham Knight with Batman. In Arkham City, you kind of feel just like a normal, feels more normal, you know, feels like more realistic. And that's what Spider-Man 1 felt like. And you had all these gadgets, and I'm not gonna lie, man, I miss the freaking tripwire, or the trip gadget, where you punch somebody in the air, you trip them, and then they get slammed back into the ground, or the freaking goddamn concussion blast, where you hit them with the blast and you could just keep hitting people like 4 times in a row, or like the web bomb. Dude, I remember all of these off the top of my dome. I didn't even freaking, like, come on now. I genuinely think that it's a hard answer, but Spider-Man 2 takes the cake, because they do improve upon a lot of the things. They add that parry mechanic, and with the gameplay and the combat, in many ways, it does really go hand in hand with the boss battles too. And that's kind of like what's also, it's like, I guess, a 2.5, like, but the boss battles are obviously a lot better in this game. The health bars really do a lot to really solidify the boss battles feeling of being a boss battle, because in the first 2 games you don't have those health bars. They don't really feel like boss battles. They feel like more, you know, action scenes. They feel more like cinematic set pieces than they do video game boss battles. And that's what was the difference between that game and this game. While this game really does give you the best of both worlds, especially with the lizard boss fight, and even, of course, with the, I guess you could say, the Venom one at the end too. They give you those cinematic set piece moments, but they also give you that fighting moment too, and it all still feels really good when you're fighting. So again, gameplay wise, with the web swings too, you know, it kind of all combines into Spider-Man 2 being a lot better than Spider-Man 1. I might get some controversy from this one. I think the Spider-Man 1 takes the cake. Man, this might be a controversial take, but there are only 2 Spider-Man side missions from the last game that I remember from Spider-Man 2. And that's not like a dig. I'm not trying to be like recent bias or whatever. I'm sure the Miles one was pretty good. The Haley one, it's not like I don't want to play. Like, that was an interesting way to kind of like incorporate deaf gameplay. I don't really know how to really say anything about that, but it was interesting. It was interesting. My personal opinion, though, I felt more like Spider-Man and those other side missions with the Spider-Man PI. And again, off the top of my dome, I'm trying to remember all of them. The Harry side missions and stuff like that. And I don't know, the side missions felt more grand. I mean, I felt like you had Taskmaster in there too. And I'll get to the villains in a second, but the Taskmaster side mission, that felt nice. The Screwball side mission, that felt nice. There's no challenges in Spider-Man 2, which pisses me off. And that's really what pegs it down a little bit compared to Spider-Man 1. There's no, and I guess even Miles Morales had this too. And it's such a small game that you would think the bigger game would also have this type of feature or some type of challenge. But Spider-Man Miles Morales had those features where you're having to web swing and you have Peter talking in your ear and you're swinging around the city trying to like do challenges in a speedy time. Felt so great. This game, I can't remember having like fun during these side missions. You know what I mean? They felt, they're not like a chore, but the way they were structured didn't have that same flow as like that first game. Because that first game with the pigeons, even the pigeon side mission was even fun. You get one of those and Howard dies. That was depressing. It was great, right? Great character moment in many ways. It's depressing as shit. The goddamn old man having Alzheimer's and whatnot. That's really, really sad too. That was such a great moment. Really, really great to see Spider-Man, rather Miles Morales or Peter, interact with those characters. But besides those two, there's not a lot of memorable ones. And, you know, I barely even... I played Spider-Man 1 and so much that I remember all of this, you know. And maybe if I keep playing this game too, I'd remember more and more of it. But just based off of what I'm remembering, Spider-Man 1 takes the cake for the side missions. Another controversial take. I think that the villains were done better in the first game too. And this is going to go hand in hand with the last point as well. But the villains 100%, 1000% were... it's hard to... Okay, Kraven really does do a good job of fleshing them out. Same thing with Yuri. Cletus Cassidy, pretty good. But I feel like Martin Lee's story, the way they're setting up... They set up Norman Osborn. You know, even with the side missions too, with the side mission villains. Taskmasters, you know, Screwball. And, you know, you go on and on with, of course, when they break out of the raft and they're all beating Spider-Man's ass and Rhino's doing Rhino shit and Scorpion's doing Scorpion shit and he poisons you. You know, the villains felt like the villains, Shocker doing Shocker things, breaking into banks, you know, running around, you have to go capture him. You know, if they felt like they actually had a purpose in the story, and it felt like it was actually, you know, building up to something very climactic and amazing. And then you have Doc Ock at the end. And I feel like Doc Ock's story was so flushed out and so perfect that they really had to do something hand in hand with that or better in order to really flesh out Venom. And in my opinion, I'm more invested in Doc Ock than I was with Venom. Even Martin Lee, to a certain extent, I felt more emotionally invested and felt bad for Martin Lee. Especially when he's trying to get his revenge. He's like, why are you trying to save this douchebag, Spider-Man? At the very end of fucking Spider-Man 1. And Peter's like, I'm trying to save you. And you see that slight glimmer of like, shit, man, maybe I am doing something bad. But then he goes into the dark side either way. And again, that plays up. Martin Lee in this game was really, really good. Very well done, but he's not really a villain. Again, even Mysterio, he's not really a villain. His Secretary Betsy is his fucking villain. So let's not get it twisted here. Story-wise, those characters in the last game had a much better use than in this game, where they all get killed off by Kraven. Does great for Kraven, but you can't tell me that one villain is better than what they did with all those villains in combination. You know, Venom was good, but I wouldn't say he was fucking better than Doc Ock. You know, I feel like I was feeling for, when I started to hear like Vulture's story, how he had cancer, I was very invested. They kind of dropped the ball in that story and whatnot. Again, they killed him off in this game. So it's hard to say that the villains were good in this game when they killed off like 50%, like 90% of them that were in this game. We don't mean see like 90% of the villains from the last game. Am I wrong? We see a couple, but I mean, like, shit, they could have used some of them. They could have expanded that, but they didn't. And I think Spider-Man 1 did a lot better. Maybe I'll get a little bit of heat from that. But this last one's definitely going to get a lot more heat. It's the goddamn... Let's just be real here. Spider-Man 1 was a lot better structured. I mean, like, without a doubt, from beginning to end, everything felt like it flowed a lot better than the second game. The second game, by the way, should have been a lot longer than the first game. Should have incorporated every villain. They should have at least had, I'll go into missed opportunities in another video, but having the other villains from the last game actually react to Spider-Man being the symbiote Spider-Man, or at least somebody reacting to him getting the suit within the actual cutscenes. Nobody does that. Very bizarre. In the first game, you have, you know, basically Doc Ock's storyline. You have Martin Lee's storyline. You have Harry in the background. You have MJ as well in the background. Miles in the background. The way they set up the game and the way they go in from act to act, going into the third act where it's very high paced, you know, basically the raft breakout is where it starts. But from the raft breakout, it's not like you know, go into a search for Ock and then Ock releases the devil's breath and then you go and find Ock and fight him and defeat him, which is essentially what happens in Spider-Man 2, where after, you know, Venom becomes Venom and becomes evil, you know, you go out and you search for him, there's the web of shadows, and then you finish him. That's essentially what happens. In this one, when the raft breakout happens, you have to fight Electro, you have to fight fucking Vulture, Scorpion, Rhino, you have to fight all these villains, Martin Lee, and then you have to fight Doc Ock. And in between that, you can go and do side quests, and you know, then you could go do different villain stuff for the side missions. So the story, the way it was structured, just overall, I don't know if I have to like somehow go deep diving analytically like I'm some video essay YouTuber and telling people how video game stories should be told and structured, but just the structure was so breakneck that they didn't have time to really allow any emotional depth within the second game. The first game, the Aunt May scene, compare that to the fucking Harry scene, I rest my case. That Aunt May scene was a culmination of the whole game setting up Aunt May as Peter's rock and breaking that down by getting her sick because of the thing that he created from fucking Dr. Octavius. Because Dr. Octavius went out and poisoned the city, which caused Aunt May to die, and that was Peter's fault, and Peter felt bad, and the fucking emotional ending felt good. This one, it just feels like, bro, I can't feel invested when I can relate to Aunt May passing away because I've had family members and people that pass away. I go to a funeral, bro, barely even know the person. I start bawling. I'm like, God damn it. I relate. I fucking look at Spider-Man 2 with this stupid ass possession story, and it's like, I can't relate to my friend being possessed by a giant alien goo monster and having to kill him. I can't. There's no world where I relate to anything that happens with Peter and Harry in the second game, besides the beginning friendship, besides a high school friendship. Besides that, the story falls flat in its emotional cues. There's a few emotional cues that feel good, and they all hinge on Aunt May dying. Martin Lee and Miles going into Peter's mind. Aunt May dying at the end. All the emotional climax was that for Miles to console him. And then when the final the act starts, they're talking to Miles and Peter's like, even in her last breath, she only cared about herself. Like, God fucking damn it, that shit was so sad. And it's only fucking because of the ending of the first game. Not because of what they set up or did anything in this next game. So, when we look at the stories and what really had more impact, going forward, I genuinely guarantee you, Spider-Man 1 is going to have a lot more of an impact in terms of story. And I really hope they take more cues from that game than they did with this game, Spider-Man 2. So, again, I rest my case. Spider-Man 1 had the better story, and oh my god! I wasn't really counting. But when you put it all together, it turns out that I think that Spider-Man 1 is better. The side missions can really be up in the air, and again, this is just my opinion. I really think that Spider-Man 2 is the more playable game. Now with the web swinging and the gameplay is overall better. Like, that's a double-edged sword here, is that the gameplay is so much better in the second game that you want to keep playing that second game over and over again. Like, I want to keep web swinging in Spider-Man 2. I don't want to go back to Spider-Man 1. It makes me feel like, no! That's how I feel when I have to go back and play Spider-Man 1's web swinging. But when I play Spider-Man 2 web swinging in gameplay, mwah, mwah, chef's kiss. And I get to play as Miles too. So it's a really cool aspect where no matter what, both games are really incredible. And while I think that, you know, Spider-Man 1's story did incredible at actually building out its world and fleshing out its villains and building up its characters to an emotional climax, I think that Spider-Man 2 has the gameplay that really also helps it out, and the acting that carries a very mediocre script that obviously is rushed and was admitted to be rushed, and that could have been a lot better. So I think that overall, Spider-Man 1 is the better game because the story definitely helps it. But I think that overall, the Spider-Man 2 has better gameplay, and the acting and the gameplay help it. So either way, they're both great. Just because my stupid list of 5 things says that one thing's better than the other doesn't mean anything. But I really want to know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the videos. It's been so much fun making all these, and I hope that you guys enjoy. Peace out.